Hello, YouTube. I didn't think I'd be back talking about Minnesota so quickly. I mean, it's Minnesota, but I saw an Adam Mockler video and a CBS News reporter from Minnesota talking about the fraud stuff, and it didn't sit well with me. It kind of seemed like shoving it under a rug and dismissing Shirley just because of his ideological bent. And again, that doesn't sit well with me um, because they were talking at cross purposes. Um, I'll take a look at the CBS News reporters segment, and I'll get back to that. Here it is.
Construing videos and editing up videos to make it seem like there was a new case of fraud when he was actually just rehashing prior investigations.
Or behavioral health services or housing to people with addiction. And because during COVID, you didn't have the same checks and balances, you had social distancing, you couldn't have the site visits, you couldn't have the in-person inspections. Well, the fraudsters got away with it all and provided the receipts and collected boatloads of cash from us, the taxpayers. More than 90 people have been charged in the schemes, mostly Somalis, and more than 60 people have been convicted. Now you have this viral video getting traction online. It's from influencer Nick Shirley, and he visited several daycares, Somali-owned daycares in the Twin Cities, and basically accused them of doing the same thing, running these sham operations where kids didn't show up, but still billed the federal government and collected millions of dollars in Medicaid funds. We visited those sites too, as did state inspectors many times over the last 6 months. And we found the facts on the ground tell a different story. Those daycares, many of them were written up for safety violations, things like maybe busted equipment or staff training issues, but that's not the same as being fraudulent. So it's important to put all of this into context. Granted, fraud is indisputably an issue in Minnesota. And next year, it's going to turn up the heat continuously on state officials, including Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who's running for re-election. And there are 14 programs, Medicaid-funded programs, that are currently under investigation by state and federal government. But childcare is not one of them. Again, this is something we're going to keep following.
Okay, so I had a few problems with the CBS News reporter. First of all, Nick Shirley was not talking about the food programs, the COVID era programs, or anything else. He was specifically focusing on daycare. And however you want to spin it, he gave several time cues in his video. He gave the operating hours of one of the daycares. He gave when they were to be open, and he indicated several times that he was there during a weekday. And at least one person he spoke to that was in a daycare center came out and said the next wave comes at 2:00. So we do have some time stamps or time frames of reference there. So Mockler is incorrect on that. It does not look like he was time chopping and doing selective times and days and everything else. The CBS News reporter, again, Shirley's not talking about any of those other programs. That's all well documented. He's specifically referring to daycare centers. And so it's a bit disingenuous. And they said that they'd been to these places as well, but they didn't even point out that at least here's one big glaring mistake with that reporter's reporting. One of the videos he showed, like the B-reel of the daycare centers they visited, showed Mako childcare. Well, and Shirley's video showed Mako childcare. And it showed that Mako childcare has been paid funds. Here's my big issue with that. You can look this up. And I'm going to share it right here. So you can see here, this 1082583. This is the Mako childcare. And you can see there's nothing there. So if Shirley's video did nothing else, I mean, this is fraud. This is a child care facility that received subsidy money from CCOT or CCAT, that program. And It doesn't even have a license. Make that make sense. So here, there's fraud right here. We found it. It's right here, literally. And if it's an inactive, if the license is inactive, it should still show up, because later on we'll see another one that is inactive and it shows up. So we're going to continue on here. The next facility they go to, so there's mini childcare, which is in the same location, and we'll see how this shows up. It's 1111696. And there, we're back here, and we can see the violations. So we've established Mako doesn't exist. Now we're going to go to this next one. This is ABC Learning Center. And this does have an active license. Staff did not supervise the children at all times. So this would indicate that, and I will go into potential workarounds to this later on in the video, because some of this stuff just seems pretty obvious to me. But maybe I'm wrong. The visit was on November 7th, and certainly with some of the violations here, it would seem that there were children there when the audit took place. So we're just going to go on to the next one here. And the next one is, okay, so this next one is the infamous Quality Learning Center, but it's really the Quality Learning Center. So this place, again, I'm with Shirley on this. It doesn't even have a correct signage, for crying out loud. Okay, that one is there, and that's in Nicollet Avenue, which matches in with the video. You can see it had, so they had two. Look at this place. Look at this place. So they were actually audited twice this year. Because here's, the program was not operating within the terms of the license. Correction documentation submitted and approved. I'm sorry, but I think this is the type of information that maybe should be available for people, for the public to see. Where, I mean, the Minnesota taxpayers are funding this place, and the program was not operating within the terms of the license. Now I get it. Maybe you don't need to like publish it or broadcast it, but a link to, you know, what that was, maybe, just maybe, should be available. And this place has been fined twice. Now I get it. A lot of these fines are because background checks were not performed. So I'm not going to pull up every fine, but we're getting into to kind of the meat of this here in a little bit. So we'll move on to the next one here. So the next place is Future Leaders Early Learning Center, and it has a license number of 1077606. We're going to go here. Okay, Future Leaders Early Learning Center. What do they have for us? Okay, so again, they were audited on November 10th. And actually, the program was not operating within the terms of the license. This is just in November. What'd they do in 2022? Okay, 2024. Equipment and furniture were not in good repair. Okay, so 2023, nothing really bad. Okay, so up to the program was not operating within the terms of the license on program practices. I don't really know what that means, but I'm sure if I look this up, it would tell me. And maybe we'll go ahead and do that. Oh, that's nice. So, paraphrase from the statute text, the statute outlines who is disqualified from maintaining or keeping a family child care license due to criminal history, including offenses like felonies involving assault, drugs, or sexual offenses, child abuse or neglect, certain other crimes impacting child safety. It also mentions provisions for review, rehabilitation, and exceptions, so checking the full text is crucial. A person is, uh, wow, okay. So that's all sorts of awful. But again, there's nothing here in the audit that would indicate that there were children present. So again, Shirley is not inaccurate as of yet. In fact, when you look at the Mako child care, and he actually uncovered fraud. Like it was there, it was right there. Maybe someone should take a look and see why those payments were made to Mako. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, so this next one is wild. It really is. Okay, keep that in mind. So first, we're going to look up Creative Minds Daycare. Closed as of October 1st. Okay, so Creative Minds Daycare is closed. We can go in and look at the actions here. So the violations, there's just a ton of them. Hazardous objects, not clean. A lot of facilities violations. The program did not comply with the reporting requirements for abuse and neglect. Children do not have daily access. Just based on this alone, this place sounds like a horror show. And then we'll go to October 2023. Mixed age group kids. I mean, this place does not sound good in the slightest. So now, it was Super Kids. Super Kids Daycare Center. And this is the most egregious one, so this is we'll end this deep dive. It's Super Kids Daycare Center. There it is. Oh, look, it's active. Oh, look. It's at the exact same location as the previous one that closed and got shut down with all those massive facilities violations. And it opens on the same day as the previous one closed. What the fuck? Maybe I'm missing something. If there's someone who works in this space or something like that, please correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm missing something, but that seems very sus. It just does. I mean, there's no way around it. Now, I think there's a few caveats, there's a few idiosyncrasies on this kind of the way this goes. So the CCAP funds are not given to the family, all right? These are provided directly to the provider, all right? So I'm not, Mockler is wrong, the CBS reporter is wrong. Shirley did not cherry pick. He's stating that he is stating fraud a lot, but he's also stating that he saw no kids, all right? These kids have to be in attendance for there to be a reimbursement, okay? That's how it works. It's a subsidy, okay? And it's a means-tested subsidy. So the more kids you have, the more income you have, that changes the payout schedule through the CCAP, through the program. Now, that payment schedule itself, again, is paid directly to the provider. So the daycare itself gets the money. They submit through their provider portal and they get the cash. Now, keep in mind what those audits show, and they happen one time a year. Okay, bear in mind what those audits showed, because the money is tied to the child. What a child care center stands to make, or what their reimbursement is. And we're going to go to Hennepin County because that's where most of these child care centers were at. And we will see. So for an infant, $512 every week, $462 for a toddler, $400 for preschool. Okay, that's a chunk of change, particularly when the out-of-pocket expense for the family themselves is about can be up to like $28 every 2 weeks. So this is a heavily subsidized program, and that is a lot of money. That is a lot of money, and it's tied to the kid. They submit it to the portal, they get paid. And I don't want to, I'm going to walk through a scenario. If there were fraud and how it could be done. So let's say as a daycare provider, you live in a community. And let's say you know how many people, or you work with a nonprofit or an NGO or some type of community outreach organization. All right. And you know you're only going to get audited once a year, but it's random. You don't know when exactly. So you have kids there up until you get audited. And after that, you know you're not going to get audited again. So why are the kids there? You don't need the kids there. Most of these facilities that he visited had already been audited in 2025. And I think that's the key point. They just need the kids there for the audit. After that, it's just free cash. Now, one thing in this scenario I couldn't get around is that obviously the family has to go and apply for this benefit. And if they don't get the benefit, I'm sure they complain to someone. So that being said, how does that get around? Then I actually looked at the payoff schedule. All right. Again, I'm not saying this is how this is happening, but I could easily see it happening, and that there's nobody there to verify that the kid is showing up or not. And these are cash disbursements. It's not like there's somebody from the state or the county coming by and handing these daycare providers a check. They're just wire transferring the money after the provider submits payment into their provider portal. See where I'm going with this? Anyone? Or am I just that? Okay. These families are not making that much money, all right? $500 a week is for an infant, and then it goes down to 400, but that's, for 6 years or so, you're getting there's a cash payout of 500 down to 400 a week. A week. I mean, if I were to do it, I'm not saying this is happening, but if I were to do it, I would sign up a whole bunch of families in a community that I trust and understand that, I'm going to take half of that disbursement every month, and they don't bring their kids by. They get half, I get half. So $200 a week. I don't know too many people making $20,000 or $25,000 a year that would not take $200 a week. Not too many. And what's the verification point? If the parent doesn't complain, right, an auditor has already been there, so they're not going to see anything, and the provider is submitting their payments with their license and everything else. There's no red flag in the system anywhere in that chain to say, oh, the kid wasn't there. unless you physically put someone outside and count how many kids are entering that building every day. And they're not doing that. So this has been a long explainer to show that I think Mockler, the CBS News, and everything else are discounting this a little too quickly. All right. This is something that should be investigated. The issue has not gone away. I still have an issue with the fact that there were no kids there. I still have an issue with the fact that she wouldn't let Joey even give Joey information on how to, attend that daycare. This is all very suspect, and I stand by my earlier video. I think Walls needs to answer it. I think the handwritten notes from the auditor, photos from the auditor, and that's another thing. For the amount of money that's going into these facilities, the level of care in the facilities are god awful. There's no windows, padlocks on the doors, blacked out windows. And when there are windows, they're blacked out. There's no play area. There's no outside area to play in. These are awful facilities. And I stand by my earlier video. I think answers must be provided and accountability needs to happen. Because even if there is no fraud and everything's fine, look at some of these audits. Look at these violations. How is that acceptable? Some of these places are pulling in 120 to 150,000 a month. A month. And you're going to tell me that's just not enough money to put grass outside or put in a window or a play area? Give me a break. Have a good night, YouTube.